Welcome back, and we are here with week 14 of the ISL podcast preview, where we take a look at the upcoming action and dive deep into the stats, figuring out what games are going to do what on a weekly basis. Now, week 14 means we're into the end of the season. We're going to dig into the playoff race with systems and break down each of the individual slots. I want to make sure that you like and subscribe to the ISL Systems YouTube channel. And of course, make sure that you're watching every Wednesday on Kick at kick.com/systems, where you can check the action, watch the slots be rolled live on stream, and see the action and how it breaks down. Looking into the and how we're going to break things down, obviously last week we had a huge upset. The first time that a slot with a 0.4 median difference lost as Gates of Olympus upset Hoarders. Now, Hoarders with that inflated median has the three largest sort of median losses. Gates of Olympus with a 0.42 loss week 13, Silverback with a 0.39 upset week 2, and Bloodsuckers with a 0.37 upset week 7. So maybe that's just a Hoarders glitch here. The rest of the ISL is 68.4% when the median slot is 68.4% going to come out on top. That would be good for 141 wins, which would put you 2 points clear of the current leader in the pick'em race. So they're doing a pretty good job trying to keep track of and keep up with this median X. We are looking at a new slot that we'll be talking about during the podcast and then during the actual spinning itself. And we're just kind of breaking down how the games break down. So how many games they are under 0.25, and it's a percentage number. So for example, Mental has 0%, Crystal's Digger has 0%, Space Wars has 3.6% of their games are under 0.25x, and Hoarders is 3.8% of their games are under 0.25x. Those four are head and shoulders above everyone else. Hip Hop Pop is the next closest, and they're at 13.2%. And then there's a lot of slots kind of in those teens. So what that tells you is those four games, Mental, Crystal's Diggers, Space Wars, and Hoarders, are very, very rarely, if ever, going to give you a 0 or a very low X. And that gives them a win against a lot of other slots that they're going to be competing with in the playoffs. The next cutoff we have is games under 0.52. And the reason we picked 0.52 is because that's the actual average median in the ISL. So that'll give you the game, how many times they kind of do worse than the average slot pull in the ISL. And obviously the ones that do worse than that, more than 50% of the times, are the ones that are going to be having a tough time winning on average. And then the last one is games over 0.75. And that gives you an idea of slots that are sort of not just meeting that 0.5. And so you expect kind of Crystal's Digger to be a little bit lower on that list than they are. I was surprised that I had to double check was King Kobe is number 2 as games over 0.75x. Sweet Bonanza, Hammer of Vulcan up there, Sloth Tumble, Grand Heist. Of course, Hoarders does really well in all three of those. So another thing that we're going to be talking about and looking at over the course of, like I said, the rest of the season, probably into season 2, as we try to dive deeper and figure out what each slot is going to do on a 5-game basis on a week. There will always be randomness when you're rolling slots and online slots, of course, as we've seen throughout the season and even last week with that huge upset. But there have been some slots that have separated themselves, and I'm going to have systems here on to talk about those slots and how they break down in the playoff race. Joining me again today, as always, appreciated, it's the man himself, Systems. We are going to break down the playoff standings before we get into the individual matchups here as we enter week 14. And man, the playoffs are getting absolutely tighter than, well, I'm not going to say it here, but well, let's take a look first at the ASC systems. We have Space Wars at 10-3, Grand Heist at 9-4, Sweet Bonanza and Boom Boom Gold both at 8-5. They are the current division leaders. And looking at the current wild cards, all three are 9-4. We have Kodiak Kingdom, Mental, and Rich Raptors. And then in the hunt, we have Bloodsuckers, Hoarders at 8-5, and Silverback Multiplier Mountain at 7-6. We have quite the race shaping up in the ISC. We've got some massive matchups today, including Mental versus Hoarders. Any thoughts when you take a look at those ASC standings as they are right now with 4 weeks left?
Well, it's a lottery. You look at the ASC South. There's a game between all three at the top. The North, they're all tied 8-5. It's all about tiebreakers and percentages at the moment and division leaders, which Sweet Bonanza's doing. And then the East is just as loaded. You've got Grand Heist, Rich Raptors tied, and then Silverback's a little bit behind those guys, so they're probably out of it. So that's a 2-dog race there. Boom Boom Gold's probably the most comfortable one at the moment. Yeah, big couple of weeks coming up. And Space Wars, who's been dominant all season, we spoke about this last week, has that really hard run home. So they've had a relatively soft schedule this season. And given how close Kodiak Kingdom and Mental are, a loss or two here in the last 4 rounds, and they could surprisingly, I don't think they'll miss the playoffs because they're already on 10 wins. You get to 12 wins, you get to 11 wins, you should probably wildcard it. But you get to 12, you definitely would wildcard it. So yeah, should be an interesting run home.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's some interesting tiebreakers. And then 3 of the last 4 weeks are going to be conference weeks. So all the division weeks are wrapped up. This week is a conference week. And we're getting into the conference record being a big tiebreaker. So all of these games, even if they don't have immediate playoff implications, do matter. So every single matchup is going to matter. Looking at the ISC, a little bit less impressive when we look at it. We've got Hip Hop Pop 10-3, Sloth Tumble 10-3. Hip Hop Pop is the number 1 seed because they did beat Sloth Tumble this year. And then Gates of Olympus at 9-4, and Hammer of Vulcan holding on to the South at 7-6. Our wild cards are Crystal's Digger at 9-4, Sheep Gone Wild 8-5, and then Dragonfall holding that last spot from the North at 7-6. We've got 4 slots: Wild Coyote, Sweet Rush, Razor Returns, and Cat Clans, all at 6-7, and all shockingly only 1 game behind Dragonfall. This one is going to be close at the bottom, and finding out which of those slots can make a run. Do you have any thoughts on any sort of the wild cards or the in the hunt actors down the ASC or ISC? Sorry.
Well, Sweet Rush versus Hammer of Vulcan in the South is the most interesting lineup, mostly because Sweet Rush lost last week. Hammer of Vulcan pulled off the upset, so they pull a game clear. But as we saw, Sweet Rush does have a couple of gimmies on the way home this week. Sorry, not this week, this season. I was just checking who does Sweet Rush have this week, just going through the lineups. They got Penny Pelican, so there you go. So they got Penny Pelican and Choco Reels over the next 2 weeks. So you would presume, well, it'll go heavy favorite into both those games. So it should probably win that. And then you've got Hammer of Vulcan up against Crystal Digger. Now, Crystal Digger obviously hasn't been in brilliant form, but it will go into that matchup as favorite. So it might flip. It might flip today with Sweet Rush back on top, and then Choco Reels the following week. So that's the most interesting matchup because it is a 2-horse race. You look at the West. The West is jam loaded, but because the other West game, Crystal Digger, has such an imposing record, they are effectively guaranteed a wildcard spot. The North's pretty much done. Dragonfall 3 games behind Sloth Tumble. They're not running that down. And Wild Coyote 3 games behind Gates of Olympus. They're not running that down. So I think Sloth Tumble, Gates of Olympus have booked their tickets. Hip Hop Pop, Crystal Digger booked their tickets. And then it comes down to Hammer of Vulcan or Sweet Rush. Whoever wins that division obviously gets a spot. And then you're right, absolute luck festival for the other 2 spots, man. Very close. Sheep Gone Wild has the way it's structured at 8-5 has a huge edge. It only probably needs to win 1 game. It probably 9 and what would it be 9-8 will probably get you there because you're not going to see these 4 bottom teams, Cat Clans, Razor, Sweet. You're going to see those guys winning 4 or 5. You're just not going to. So yeah, it's going to be a interesting battle for that last wildcard spot.
And the last 2 weeks, Sheep Gone Wild actually has Hammer of Vulcan and then Sweet Rush.
Interesting.
Those will be very big games for playoff seeding. Sheep Gone Wild, I think, will lock themselves up a spot this week with retro tapes, but they'll have a big say in who makes the playoffs based on how they perform coming down the stretch as well. All right, well, yeah, let's get into the matchups. We've got some real doozies this week. I don't know, every single week I look back at the week that we just had and shake my head wondering how it happened and thinking that I've got a handle on it this week. Hopefully that's the case. Game number 1 is going to be Cabin Crashers versus Bloodsuckers. This one should be open and shut. Cabin Crashers had their moment in the sun last week, like we predicted right here on this podcast that they would. But I think Bloodsuckers, who is in the hunt, they're 1 game behind Mental, Kodiak, and Rich Raptors, so they really cannot afford to lose, especially a game like this. I think they easily take this one and kind of look forward to Dragonfall next week. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, look, good win. Cabin Crow wasn't just a good win; it was a really good win. All 3 profited, which is mind blowing, but which wasn't really required. But it was a bit of overkill. It was nice to see by Cabin Crushers. But yeah, no, look, Bloodsuckers very consistent. I feel like they should get the job done. Their median X is getting right up in that near unbeatable range. I say near unbeatable because what Gates of Olympus did last week. But yeah, the differentials are just they're just too far. You'd be pretty crazy, especially if you're in the hunt for top 10, top 20 tipping to risk that on Cabin Crushes this week.
Absolutely. Now, this next game, game number 2, is one that has a just massive amount of playoff implications. So we have Gates of Olympus and Sloth Tumble. Gates of Olympus is 9-4, +9 net rating, a 0.51 median. Sloth Tumble is 10-3, a +12 net rating, a 0.63 median. And here's the thing: right now, Sloth Tumble is the number 2 seed, and Gates is the number 3 seed. So if Gates were to pull this off, they would obviously pull even on record and then take the lead because they would have the head-to-head. So this one is really sort of important for that 2 and 3 seed. Like you said, I think they're both going to make the playoffs, but I think this will decide who wins that 2 and 3 seed. We've got a couple extra advanced statistics this week: games under 0.25, games under 0.52, and games over 0.75. That just gives us a little bit more clarity in where they're falling normally. I'm going with Sloth Tumble here based on all of the numbers. I think they have a better median. They have less games under 25. They have less games under 52, and they have more games over 0.75. So I think Sloth Tumble pulls this one off and kind of secures that number 2 spot. Do you think Gates stays hot after last week?
Yeah, look, this is going to be a field and day sort of thing. This is a near virtual coin flip. Both games sort of very similar in structure, in the sense that they can all pop off, they can all pay low, they regularly don't. When I say don't rip, you don't see them very often under 0.1. They very rarely bob up with under 0.1s. I don't have a lot to add on this matchup. I'll just be seeing how I feel in the day. I normally have a couple of games each week where it's like, all right, what am I feeling? What's the vibe? But yeah, you could go either way. This does have big, like you said, playoff implications, because seeding, although there's no home advantage per se, at least nothing we've built into season 1, this conference is very weak at the bottom. So if you're in a situation where, for instance, you can potentially play Dragonfall or Razor Returns or Cat Clans instead of playing, I don't know, Hammer of Vulcan or Sloth Tumble or Crystal Digger, actually. In fact, I believe the number, I got to figure out the playoffs, but yeah, the number three seed might have to play Crystal Digger, as the number 2 seed will play like a Dragonfall or a Cat Clans. Yeah, massive game, because that goes from maybe not a free win, but what should be a very easy win up to against maybe an underdog if it comes to that in the playoffs.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's one I'm definitely going to be tuned into. Game number 3, King Kobe and Grand Heist. Now, this one on face, you would think that King Kobe has its sort of work cut out for it. But King Kobe is on a 5-match winning streak, and they have Hip Hop Pop and Crystal's Digger sort of on their belts in that 5-game winning streak. They're 6-7. They're in the hunt in the AS, or they're not in the hunt in the ASC because they're in the ASC. They would be if they were in the ISC. They have a 0.63 median, near a 0 net rating. Grand Heist is 9-4, a +4 net rating, a 0.72 median. So this one I think is a little bit closer than most people would assume. Grand Heist has been a little bit inconsistent lately, losing 2 of their last 3 in sweeps. I've been really debating pulling the trigger on King Kobe on this one, just as sort of an upset, but I think I'm going to have to go with Grand Heist. Do you think Grand Heist kind of rights the ships and get themselves ready for the playoffs, or King Kobe keeps their push going?
Yeah, look, I think King Kobe's been in great form, but it just, we haven't seen it of late, to be honest, in the last few weeks, but it does drop in a lot of those 0.1s, 0.2s. In fact, if I look at the percentages, that new stat you put up, games under a quarter of the buyback, 29% King Kobe, and then Grand Heist has that same one at less, or 50% less than that, at just 14%. And when a game's got a scatter feature like Grand Heist has, where it can rip off $200 or $300 just on the scatter money alone, and that can sometimes steal a win, you've just got to go with that one. You got to keep your fingers crossed, and you've got to go with that game.
No, I'm not gonna. I think I agree. I'm not gonna cause any conspiracy theories here, but King Kobe started winning right when they got removed from stake and then put back on. So it's almost like
Watch
a
out, too many
reverse.
viewers.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, my bad. Yeah, that's right. My bad.
Too many viewers are into those conspiracy theories in my channel. So
yep. We're just feeding them. Throw a little fuel on the fire. See if King Kobe stays hot. Game number 4 is going to be Wild Coyote Megaways versus Dragonfall, a very, very big matchup in the ISC. Wild Coyote is 6-7, a -3 net rating, a 0.5 median. Dragonfall is 7-6, a +1 net rating, a 0.33 median X. Dragonfall is currently the 7 seed, so they're the last spot in the playoffs in the ISC, and Wild Coyote is right behind them, kicking down that door. I think Dragonfall, that median of 0.33 is just putrid for a 7-6 team. I think Wild Coyote stays hot, and beats Dragonfall and kind of really throws a grenade into the playoff picture. Do you think Dragonfall beats their horrible median and kind of stays a darling?
No. It was a good win last week. It was a good win against Kodiak Kingdom, even though it did nothing last week. Its wins previously, again, we've spoken about this: Royal Potato, Cabin Crashers, Cat Clans, Retro Tapes, Penny Pelican, Royal Potato. They're basically beat up on the nobodies. They've lost to the good games, even though they've pushed it to 5 games a couple of times. Again, look at the numbers. Games under 0.25, 47% Dragonfall. That is nearly... that's going to be hard to beat. I think if you look at a stat, if you compare the two under 0.25s, and there's a massive, massive discrepancy, like double discrepancy, I think you're going to see that those teams rarely win. I think they're going to have a super minor winning percentage. And although Wild Coyote can flop, you just simply have to take it this week against Dragonfall, even though their stats look very similar outside of Median X.
Absolutely. Next up, we kind of talked about this one. Game number 5 is Retro Tapes and Sheep Gone Wild. Retro Tapes 1-12, a -22 net rating, a 0.25 median X. They end up under 0.25 almost half of the time, and under 0.52 3 out of 4 times. Sheep Gone Wild is 8-5, a +1 net rating, a 0.53 median. They are the 6th seed, so in a precarious spot, but still need to pile on a couple wins. I think Sheep Gone Wild takes this one pretty easily. They're very consistent. They don't have a lot of high-end blow-up potential per se, but they're always going to get you, a decent number. So I think Sheep Gone Wild wins it. You think Retro Tapes has anything special for Sheep this week?
No. I think Sheep Gone Wild should be able to bob out even the half the bye wins, and that's going to be enough to take 1 or 2 games. So, should be a pretty comfortable win to Sheep Gone Wild this week.
Yeah, I agree. Next up, Choco Reels and Dr. Rock. This one is one of the few games that does not have any playoff implications. Choco Reels is 2-11, a -15 net rating, a 0.23 median X. Dr. Rock is 5-8, a -8 net rating, a 0.49 median. I think just based on that median, and Dr. Rock has some surprising statistics. I know we've talked about this ad nauseum every time we talk about them, but you expect them to be more volatile along the lines of Choco Reels. But that 0.49 median, only half of the games go under 0.5. I go with Dr. Rock easily here. I assume you do too.
Should be a comfortable one for Dr. Rock. Choco Reels and Royal Potato are probably the 2 slots where you can basically they're up against a handicap of at least a game every series, because they're going to get 1 game at like 0.05 or 0.10, like every single game. Every single series. So they're always right up against it. So I'm happy with the Doctor. Yeah, and you're right. Their stats are surprisingly okay for a game we sort of known as boom or bust.
This is a crazy stat here for you. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 slots that have made money or broke even this year based on the average X. Hip Hop Pop, Raise the Returns, Choco Reels, Rise of Atlantis, Royal Potato, Penny Pelican, Rich Raptors, Mental, and Grand Heist. So that middle, Choco Reels, Rise of Atlantis, Royal Potato, and Penny Pelican, just shocked that they're all averaging over 1x, but it's those big, huge wins that they get. We'll see if maybe Choco Reels has one more.
Yeah, Choco Reels at the moment is up 16. I've actually got the stats from somebody else each week. They send it through. Is up $16,000 this season, which you'd be like, wait, what? How? Well, they've got the biggest win of the whole league this year at 38 times the buy. That blow up, I think it was week 1 or week 2. Speaking of losses, if you go to that previous matchup we just spoke about, Retro versus Sheep Gone Wild, that's one of our worst matchups all year. You have Retro Tapes losing $27,000 this year. 27,000, and whereas Sheep Gone Wild's actually down 10, but that's sort of been more sort of slowly grinding losses. So very surprising there. But Choco Reels again, boom or bust.
Absolutely. Game number 7 is Space Wars versus Sweet Bonanza. Absolutely huge. Probably the biggest, other than maybe Mental and Hoarders, in terms of playoff positioning this week. Space Wars 10-3, league leaders, +14 net rating, 0.6 median. They've only gone under 0.25 4% of the time this year. Sweet Bonanza, 8-5, a +5 net rating, a 0.71 median. So they're beating Space Wars by 0.11. Space Wars is the #1 seed. They're 1 game ahead of Grand Heist. Sweet Bonanza is tied for the 3 seed with Boom Boom. Man, what do you think here? I don't know at all.
I will be going Sweet Bonanza. I think the wheels are about to fall off Space Wars. They've done well with what they've got. Their stats stack up well. They've never got more than double the buy. And you can flip this around a few times in the sense that, well, if it's slot against like a half an X or sorry, a 0.1 times the buy or something, it's a free win for the opponent. Well, you can say the opposite here. If you get to double the buy, you're guaranteed to win. Now, yeah, most of the time you do win if you get double the buy, but sometimes you can lose. But against Space Wars, you get up near that 1.7 mark, you're going to be winning. You're going to be winning. Now, the new stat you put in is this probably tells a tale as to why it's got the record it does. Is 4% under a quarter of the buy. So 96% of the buys, Space Wars is above 25% of the buyback. And that's probably why it's doing well this season.
Yeah, and I only worry to see Sweet Bonanza have a 19% on there, because that means basically 1 out of 5 buys, Sweet Bonanza is going to give you that under 0.25, and so that's a free win for Space Wars, because you know it's not going to happen. So now, like you had talked about earlier, now Sweet Bonanza basically has 1 loss. If we're going to take those numbers on face value, they have to win 3 of the other 4. Now, I think they can do it with that upside that you talked about, but that's one of the reasons that I added those stats on here this week, because I think they give a little bit of a more nuanced picture to kind of how and where slots are ending up more often than not. So I agree. I think I'm going with Sweet Bonanza, but Space Wars, I would just not be surprised. I've been surprised all year. It would be foolish of me to be surprised if they continue to win.
Yeah.
Game number 8, the halfway point, Sweet Rush Megaways and Penny Pelican. Sweet Rush, we've talked about them in the playoff hunt, 6-7, a -1 net rating, a 0.48 median. Penny Pelican, 4-9, a -10 net rating, a 0.37 median. They're out of the playoff race, whereas Sweet Rush is desperately trying to stay in it. They have 2 losses in a row from Grand Heist and Rich Raptors. And Penny Pelican is not the pushover they were at the beginning of the season. I think I probably go with Sweet Rush here, only based on the history. But if you look at all of the stats, this is a really close matchup. Do you think maybe some more Pelicans show up?
Yeah, it's actually super close looking at the stats. I mean, I was leaning to Sweet Rush, but I may go the Pelican in the end. Yeah, games under similar, games under 0.52 similar, games over 0.75 similar. Highest wins are similar. Median X, slight edge to Sweet Rush, net rating, a solid edge to Sweet Rush. But yeah, this is absolutely one where some people might try and maybe see if the Pelican can sneak one in.
Absolutely. Especially if we get to the end. Like I said, 4 weeks, you got to get those points that you can for tipping if you can. Game number 9, Boom Boom Gold and Rich Raptors. A huge one again for the playoffs. Boom Boom Gold, 8-5, a +10 net rating, a 0.55 median. Rich Raptors is 9-4, +12 net rating, a 0.59 median. So almost identical records. Rich Raptors is holding on to the 7 seed. They're 1 ahead of Bloodsuckers and Hoarders in that tough ASC, whereas Boom Boom is tied with Sweet Bonanza for the 3 seed. I think Rich Raptors continues. They're on a 5-game winning streak here. I think they keep it going. I think that little blip in the middle was kind of them letting everyone else back into the race, but I think they win this one and really put a secure lock on that wild card spot. What do you think?
Yeah, their median's 0.55, but if you look at sorry, not 0.55, 0.59, which is very similar to Boom Boom Gold, but the game's over 0.75, although they are kind of similar to 41% versus 46%. That's a good number. So that means nearly 50% of your games, you're getting 75% of your buy back or more. And that's going to win you a lot of matches when slots fail. Not even huge failures, but just even half money back, quarter money back, etc. Yeah, they've been in good form. They've been coming back a bit. Like you said, that slump mid-season was kind of concerning. I think they started the year off as favorites to win it all. And they're still one of the big contenders, absolutely, for their consistency. And they've shown in the past few weeks they can actually bob up with a 3 or 4x if they get the right setup too. So I'll be going Rich Raptors this week against Boom Boom.
That makes sense. Next up, game number 10, Bonanza Billion versus surprising playoff in the hunt, Cat Clans 2. Bonanza Billions 3-10, a -13 net rating, a 0.44 median. They fell off their winning ways last week with a loss to Sweet Bonanza, although it was close. They gave them a run. Cat Clans 6-7, a -4 net rating, a 0.41 median. They are in the hunt, though. They're one game behind Dragonfall for that last playoff spot in the ISC. This is interesting. Bonanza Billion has a higher median and is probably going to be the less picked slot. I think I might go Bonanza Billion only because of that. What do you think?
Yeah, look, it's a coin flip. It's a coin flip again. I'm very surprised to see Bonanza Billion's 0.44 median. My brain would tell me it's a lot worse than that. They're in a tough slot this year. We're down about $20,000 on Bonanza Billion. We're nearly break even on Cat Clans, down a little bit on the Cat Clans. Yeah, this will be a day feel. I'm leaning towards Cat Clans, to be honest. Just I don't know why. My gut's just telling me Cat Clans. Would be nice to see if Cat Clans could keep the race for the final wildcard spot alive, even though they have a very, very hard run home. So this is a must win for them, because if they lose this, they're not going to be able to run Hoarders, Super Mega Monsters, and Gates of Olympus on the run home. So yeah, I'll be looking forward to this matchup here.
Yeah, I think this is Cat Clan's a lot like the Bills. You know, you look at this, it's like, well, geez, you don't win this one, and you got 3 slots that you're definitely not. You're gonna have to beat them all, and the chance that you're gonna beat any of them is pretty low. So
that's right.
Yeah, tough week for Cat Clans. They got to get it. Game number 11, Kodiak Kingdom and Rise of Atlantis. Kodiak Kingdom 9-4, a +9 net rating, a 0.52 median. They're the tied for the 4th seed with Kodiak and Mental in the middle of that ASC kind of wild card mess. So a huge week to separate themselves. Rise of Atlantis out of the playoffs. They're 4-9, a -11 net rating, a 0.46 median. We talked about it before, though. They are profitable on the season. And they beat Wild Cody last week to kind of throw a wrench in their big comeback that they had. I think Kodiak gets this one done pretty easily. All of the stats point to them. Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, look, although the median X is a little bit closer together, the other stats are all leaning towards Kodiak Kingdom. Look, again, if Rise of Atlantis pulled it out, I wouldn't be completely. It would be an upset, of course. Oh, sorry, I just choked on oxygen. That's always fun. But I'll be tipping Kodiak Kingdom. The matchup doesn't overly interest me. Again, to show you how weird this season's been in terms of profitability, or not profitability, is into what we've lost. Kodiak Kingdom, who we all agree would be a much more consistent, solider slot than Rise of Atlantis, is actually down $3,700 this year. Rise of Atlantis is up 10,000. Obviously, that's mostly from a couple of their massive wins, but yeah, unfortunately, this year's not about who makes the most money. It's about who wins the best of 5.
Absolutely. Well, and an interesting stat to look at that I actually double checked. Rise of Atlantis is at the top. They have 43% of their games over 0.75. Kodiak Kingdom only has 30%. So Rise of Atlantis really gives you that boom or bust sort of potential, where they're going to have a big game or they're going to have just an absolutely awful game. And so I was really surprised to see them leading that by such a large margin. And it kind of gives you the idea of, if an upset's going to happen, that's how it would do it.
Yeah.
Game number 12, Hammer of Vulcan versus Crystal Digger. Hammer of Vulcan, 7-6, a +3 net rating, a 0.7 median X. Crystal Digger, a 9-4 record, a +17 net rating, a 0.68 X. So virtually identical, other than their net ratings. Obviously, Crystal Digger has 0 games under 0.25, which just is the reason that they have those 9 wins, but they're on a 3-game losing streak. And Hammer of Vulcan, I know these slots don't have emotions, but they are absolutely fighting for their playoff life. They swept Grand Heist last week pretty decisively. Man, I don't know. I think I'm probably going to have to go with Hammer of Vulcan here and have them stay hot and kind of go with the contrarian pick. But I assume you think Crystal Digger is going to get back on track.
Yeah, look, I've got to go Crystal Digger. I mean, you look at, so this percentage here again gives you the maths, even though the median X's are basically identical. In fact, Crystal Digger is going to be an underdog based on all the stats there. The game's under 0.52. Crystal Digger 13%. Hammer of Vulcan 35%. That's not a bad number, by the way, 35%. That's a fine number. It's just anything against Crystal Digger is going to look weird because of the scatter money that Crystal Digger gets. I'm just a sucker for the scatter money, as I think most people are. And again, Crystal Digger never gets under 0.25 because of that scatter money. And we're going to see that come up, by the way, shortly with Mental as well. That's why Mental's been doing very good this season with those free wins. This one, you can make a case for both. Most people are going to lean towards Crystal Digger. If you are on the verge of trying to pick up a point or trying to make ground on a certain position in a leaderboard, this is probably one of the matchups you'd roll the dice on.
Absolutely. Game number 13, one of the ones that people have been looking forward to all season long, not just this week. It's Mental versus Hoarders. Mental 9-4, a +4 net rating, a 0.61 median. Hoarders a 8-5 record, a +7 net rating, a league leading 0.89 median. But this is all about the playoff race. Mental has that coveted wild card spot. Hoarders is on the outside looking in. This would obviously tie them in record and give Hoarders the tiebreaker. Both of these slots have minuscule games under 0.25, but something that's interesting is that Mental almost 50% of the time doesn't end up over 0.52, which makes me lean toward Hoarders in this one. What are you looking at and seeing?
Look, this matchup, I've got to go with Hoarders. The interesting thing about Hoarders is, I guess this is the super bonus though, is that under 0.25, but there's no bonus guarantee on Hoarders as there is on Mental, or it's an unwritten one on Mental. There's still only 4% under 0.25 versus 0%, of course. But then the big discrepancy there is games under half money back. This is where Mental falls off a bit, 50%, Hoarders 28%. So there's the big gap there between those two slots. Even though on paper they're very even, the median X is a bit different, but all the other numbers are very, very similar. This season, money-wise, I want to give it a shout for the money because we've got someone who's done a lot of great work with the money side of things, keeping track of losses and wins. Both games about $2,000 down over the season, so about break even for both slots this season. But I'll be going Hoarders over there, but you can make a case for either.
Absolutely. Game number 14, Big Bamboo and Silverback Multiplier Mountain. Big Bamboo 5-8, -10 net rating, a 0.47 median X. Silverback 7-6, a +8 net rating, a 0.54 median. Silverback is very at the bottom of the in the hunt for the ASC. That's about it in terms of playoff implications. I do think that Silverback wins this one. Big Bamboo is just so inconsistent, and Silverback, although it takes forever, you're usually going to get a couple decent hits on it. You agree?
I agree. I'm going to be looking for one or two weird ones this week. So if I'm going to be looking for one or two weird ones, this is going to be one of them. So I'm probably going with Big Bamboo this week. Although I agree with everything you say, I agree that the numbers have it for Silverback. I'm basically going, all right, boys, gut feel this week. I'm going to roll the dice and see if I can get an upset and pick up a few tipping spots this week because it's getting to the end of the season now. And I'm pretty much dead on both sides, but I would like to have first season and finish off with a good number.
Absolutely. Well, and I mean, the numbers are a lot closer than you kind of think at first glance. Too bad. And so this is a good one to take a shot on, I think. Game number 15, Razor Returns versus my favorite Hip Hop Pop. Razor Returns 6-7, a -2 net rating, a 0.43 median. Hip Hop Pop 10-3, a 13 net rating, and a 0.68 median. This one, like I said, has some playoff implications. Razor Returns pretty much needs to run the table. Hip Hop Pop is currently in first place in the ISC, holding on against Sloth Tumble. They do have a tiebreaker against Sloth Tumble. I think Hip Hop Pop wins this one. Like I said, I really think that they have everything that they need. They're going to be tested the next 3 weeks: Grand, Heist, Sweet Rush, and Hammer Vulcan. But I think they get it done this week. Do you think Razor Returns maybe flips the script on them?
No, you've got to go Hip Hop Pop. Hip Hop Pop's going to be very, very popular this week. I'll be going Hip Hop Pop, but just one quick note on Hip Hop Pop. When I'm looking down their stat line, I love Hip Hop Pop too. I think they're batting above their averages. I think their record is slightly better than it should be. If you look at all their stats across the board, 0.25, 0.52, 0.75, and median X, yeah, they're respectable, but I can find you 6 or 7 or 8 slots that have that and aren't quite at the level that Hip Hop Pop are. And just going through them, what do we got? We've got one. I'm just looking at absolute gimme games, win or lose against gimme slots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, I guess there's only 5 gimmies out of 13. That's not too many. But yeah, look, I think Hip Hop Pop wins. They got a hard finish this season. They're going to make the playoffs, of course, but I don't know. I think they're a bit like the Eagles here in the NFL. Everyone knows they're a good team. Everyone knows they're a good slot. I just think they're just slightly batting a little bit above average. So we'll see if that unfolds sort of in the back half of the last 3 weeks or not.
Well, that's a good way to make me hate hip hop hop. So there we go. Well done. The last one on the list is Super Mega Monsters versus Royal Potato. And this is the one with the largest median difference. It's the only one. It's the 9th game of the season that has a larger than 0.5 median difference. Super Mega Monsters 5 and 8, a +1 net rating, a 0.67 median. Royal Potato 4 and 9, -11 net rating, a 0.16 median. I think Super Mega Monsters wins. I think I'm going to go 3-1. I think Royal Potato upgrades once and Super Mega Monsters maybe get stuck in level 2. So I think I'm going 3-1 Super Mega Monsters. Where do you see this one ending up?
Look, Super Mega Monsters are going to win this. Whether it's 3-1-3 zip, like you said, is going to be the answer. I'll be going 3-1. Fuck it. I'll hope the Potato blows up one game. But yeah, it's just about the correct score here for the last game this week. Again, fun fact, you're not going to probably believe this, but Super Mega Monsters down $900 this season. Raw Potato, you guessed it, up $6,500 on the year. So you've got games like Penny Pelican up $6,000, Royal Potato up $6,000, Choco Reels up 16 grand. A lot of the bottom feeders are basically boom or bust, and they've done pretty well this season. The poorest slots in terms of money, but again, the format best of 5, they're drawing nearly dead.
Absolutely. And maybe there'll be some things that we can work into the next season to get them a little bit of recognition. But I really like the way the format has worked so far. I think it's been a really great first season. Make sure you're liking and subscribing this video. Make sure you're tuning in on Wednesdays to get the end of the season here in the playoffs as we get up into season 2. Thank you so much, Systems, for joining me. I will catch you again next week and be watching you on stream.
All right. See you later.
Have a good one.